Joining us on the webinar is Demi Runas, Assistant Women's Golf Coach at Stanford University. Demi is the best UC Davis golfer in program history. Following graduation in 2013, she turned professional and spent 8 seasons between the Epson and LPGA tours. And prior to coming to Stanford, her coaching resume includes returning to her alma mater to serve as women's head golf coach. Her impact was immediate, vaulting UC Davis up in the national ranks by nearly 100 spots. Demi, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to kind of get to talking about Clipped and how useful it is for any golfer really, but especially for junior golfers kind of coming up in the ranks and looking to play into college. And
so what is Clip? Clip is an AI-driven performance app that's used by the best college programs and players. It tracks your entire game, every golf shot on the course, every shot in your practice sessions. The result is a totally data-driven, objective view of your entire game. The college coach using Clip loves the phrase, "Why guess when you can measure?" What makes Clip so easy to understand and embrace, it's the language of Clip. Every golf shot you hit, both on the golf course and in practice, it's accurate. Clip assigns a shot quality score to every golf shot. Shot quality considers the factors that influence the results of a golf shot: the weather, course conditions, course difficulty. Clipped is insightful. It analyzes your data, shares truths about your game, shows trends both upward and down. So, Demi, when you were first introduced to shot quality and player quality, what was your first impression?
When I first was introduced to both of the concepts, I just really liked that it gave context to whatever it is that you were trying to achieve. So it took, kind of the emotion out of what do I need to do to get better? And I think, if you look at LPGA players, if you look at PGA players, or, the top 100 in college golf, it's one thing to look at it and say like, okay, well, they're really good, but what does that mean? And like, how do I get to that level? And I think a shot quality score, it provides that context, and it quantifies your game without the hindrance of emotion, which I think from a coaching side, it's really effective that way, because it's one thing for a player, if you tell a player, hey, I think you need to get better on your short game. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And also, like, that's my opinion. Although coaches always have the best interests at heart, it's not always taken that way. But if you can look at your shot quality score and say, okay, if I'm trying to get to this next level, whatever that next level is, then this is going to give me the benchmark. Compare. We don't necessarily love the term compare yourself to another person, but comparing yourself without context, I think, is where things get sticky. Shot quality provides the context, and it gives you a benchmark to work towards, which I think it doing that without the emotion behind it of like, okay, I'm not good versus good. And it kind of gives you the numbers, and it quantifies whatever it is that you need to work on. I mean, we have our players input their rounds, basically any tournament round, qualifying rounds as well. And the more that you do it, the more data that you can gather. And it's a super efficient dissection of your game. And you can pretty much kind of see right away what areas are your strengths and which ones are areas that maybe you need to make up some ground in. The trends, I think, are really great, because you can say that you're baseline a really great ball striker. So your off the tee and your approach play is gonna be some of your higher numbers. But if you hit a little rough patch and you start to see the trend going down, it can kind of alert you to, hey, I'm usually pretty good at this, but I'm having a little bit of a downward trend. Maybe let's check in with where I am right now with my mechanics, or let's just have a quick range session, or I'll go to a lesson. So taking a lot of the guesswork out of it, so that you can be really intentional with your practice and kind of pick apart the areas of your game that need the attention, or the areas of your game that you kind of want to bring up a little bit and make your game a little bit more well-rounded. It definitely gives the players confidence, insight, and feedback all at once. And it's doing so without necessarily like a coach having to say, hey, work on this. And it allows us to kind of work with them, as opposed to telling them, this is what I feel. It's like, no, this is what the numbers are saying. This is the breakdown. These are the facts, not the feelings. So for us, yeah, they've definitely really embraced it.
So, Demi, when you see the difference between strokes gained and shot quality, how do you communicate that to your players?
Yeah, I mean, again, just because it takes into account everything. We talk about it all the time. We get done with rounds. It's like, oh, I hit this shot and it ended up 15 feet from the hole and blah blah blah. And you sometimes you forget because you get to a point where you're so good and that you think, oh, if I have a 7 iron in my hand, I should be hitting it to this level or to this distance. But realistically, this breakdown shows you and puts you again like I measure it as a benchmark alongside some of the professionals. Like hitting a 7 iron to 15 feet is actually pretty good, considering that the tour average is probably around there. So it takes it again. It takes the emotion out of play, and to take in all of the elements that are involved in a lot of the golf rounds. Like how rare is it that we're going to get a perfect round of golf? Kind of never, unless you're in Southern California or somewhere on the West Coast. Then more often than not.
The what to work on feature has really become very popular with college players, elite amateurs. Your players have to balance their life as a student with the time needed to be a successful college golfer. Not an easy task with today's academic requirements, especially at Stanford University with this very high academic reputation. Tell our audience about how you help your players achieve that required balance.
I mean, especially at Stanford, our kids are always busy. If it's not something with the team, then they've got their school stuff and then everything else outside of that. So we as coaches just do our best to make things as efficient as possible for them, especially when they come into the arena of the golf stuff, that whether that means making sure that they know the schedule for the week, so they know exactly where they need to be and for how long they need to do it. And then if you boil it all the way down to even Brooke and I, the other assistant planning practices, making sure that when they arrive, the practice drills are set up just so that they can hop right into it and get in there, get their work done, and then go along with their days. It's all about how do we make this area of their lives as stress-free as possible, because they've definitely been a lot of stressors outside of that. And then, obviously when we go to tournaments, that's also another stressful environment. So how do we do our jobs and set up their golf practice as efficiently as we can so that they can get in there and, become better, that whatever that 1% is better for the day, and then go on and be Stanford students.
Well, the What to Work On feature clip has been designed to call attention to those areas that are trending up and suggest additional focus on the areas of a player's game that are trending down. That What to Work On kind of breaks it down into 3 areas. Importance. It ranks all those areas of your game and how they impact your scoring. How you do this well, you score well. It also provides you opportunity. College players and coaches call these quick wins or low-hanging fruits, and you've already referenced that, Demi, that by helping your players identify those areas where just a little added focus in their practice sessions, making their time the most efficient it can absolutely have a specific impact. And so, do you find using Clip has built confidence in your players?
Yes, definitely, because it gives them the opportunity to be more involved in the process, I think. It gives them the independence to identify what it is that they need to work on too. So it's not just us looking at it and telling them. Again, like we'll kind of dive into the stats together and we can, come up with a game plan for what it is that they need to improve on. Work together with the coach in that aspect, or give them a schedule or give them a practice, and then they can go off and do it, come back, and then we can talk about it a little bit more later. And then just giving them the opportunity to be more accountable for that, I think gives them the confidence because it means that they're invested in it as well. But no, seeing and then being able to see the trends, like say like, okay, this area of my game is the highest opportunity to improve, which is my wedges. So you do that for a couple of weeks, then you start to see the trend ticking upwards, immediate confidence there because of the immediate feedback of, this is what I needed to work on. I did the work and now I'm seeing the results. So it's been great in that aspect. And then from the coaching side of things, it's been really helpful in identifying where can we be most effective in practice and how do we use our practice better so that we can become better players in competition.
So one of the questions I was really anxious to ask you, Demi, is that in your tenure at UC Davis and now at Stanford, have there been some examples you can share when one of your players learned from their clipped account the need to put in more work on a specific part of the game and the results?
Yeah, definitely in both areas. When I was at Davis, I had a player who was an awesome ball striker. Was pretty, fairly long off the tee, and then also pretty good with her irons. But definitely, like, I could see it, but getting her to understand it, like the short game side of it, and her wedges needed a little bit of work. And then in doing the stats, she could obviously see that as well because the clipped data showed it. And she was able to work through using some of the drills that they have available on Clipped in the activities area. And by doing those little combines, she was able to really tighten up her wedge game. And you could see the immediate impact in the breakdown of her game and then also obviously in her scoring. So for her to have that aha moment and the breakthrough moment was really great for her because it kind of solidified um, the area that we decided that was going to be the low hanging fruit for her to kind of give her a quick win in an easy area to improve based on the data, and then for her to be able to see it as well, just kind of it makes it make sense, I guess, right? So that they're not doing anything based on feeling. It's like, oh, I'm just a bad wedge player. It's like, no, you're a decent wedge player, but you could be better, and this is how you're going to do it. I mean, like I said earlier, every student athlete, not just at Stanford, they're very busy. They basically have two full-ish time jobs between being a student and an athlete. So truly appreciated the efficiency and the functionality of the capture process. When you don't have to spend 30 to 40 minutes putting in your stats, you're going to look at it as something that is enjoyable almost, and rather than something that you kind of dread doing because it can inputting stats can be a little bit belabored. So definitely was something that got a lot of positive feedback about, and to have that take 10 minutes versus 30 minutes so that they can go on and do their homework, and then we can dissect it a little bit faster too. It just makes everything a lot more efficient.
One of our missions tonight is to get junior players that have the goal of playing college golf, young men, young women. When they get to college, they're going to be required to use a stats platform of some kind. We now know that 250-ish programs across the country are using Clip, so it's likely it could be Clip. What are the best ways, in your opinion, to introduce junior players to stats and data and collecting either or both?
I think definitely get them to understand the why. So when they input the stats, go over it with them, show them what the numbers mean, show them how you're going to be able to get better. And then when they do go out and they work on the stuff that you say, check back in and say, okay, now let's look at your stats again. And you'll be able to see the improvement. Doing it just to do it, I don't think that's necessarily the most effective way, because then what are you really getting out of it? And then you again go back to kind of dreading having to do it. So if you take the time to help them understand the stats and how the stats help, and help them to see the wins that they're going to have and the improvements that they're going to have, then I think that's kind of the best way to make it stick.
Let's talk about recruitment just a minute. I love that Coach Walker said this about you. She will add another dimension to the mentoring we provide our team. We've heard from many coaches, an early question in the recruiting process has become, can you share your data? How does the ability for a prospect to share data impact early in the recruiting process as you see it?
It's definitely become kind of a thing that draws the eye, and we get a lot of emails, like whether it's at Stanford or Cal or, any college out there. Head coaches get a ton of emails, assistant coaches get a lot of emails. So having the data at the forefront kind of allows us to hone in on where the player's at with their game. If it's clear, it's concise, and it's easy to access, makes things a lot easier on our end. Just when we're looking at initial emails and even just like the initial, beginning parts of the recruiting process. And it definitely gives them a better chance to stand out if it's right there at the forefront of the initial recruiting process. And I love reading the stories that we get in the emails. It definitely paints a picture, but at the end of the day, if you can put that out there and put the numbers in front, the chances of a coach really reading through it's just going to go up, because we're going to need to see that snapshot of the game.
So, Demi, as your team, I know that you have practice sessions where you use launch monitors and that data and other technologies. How impactful is it being able to use that data in the clipped accounts?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I've said it a couple times, but the efficiency that Clipped operates with just makes things so much easier. The fact that it ties to TrackMan, a lot of our players use TrackMan in their practice sessions, so to have that data kind of just be synced in makes things a lot easier. You don't have to worry about going back and forth and inputting different practice sessions into Clipped versus, when it's in TrackMan. So it just makes things a lot easier for them. As efficient as we can make it for these players, the better they're going to be, the faster they're going to get better. I think the really cool thing too about the capture thing is when you're playing, you don't have to play a full round of golf. Like, you can get data for as many holes as you play that day. So say you're fighting daylight, but you may not get 18, but you can get 13 in. Great. You can still play a round of golf. You can still learn from your stats that day. So nothing is a waste. No amount of inputting of data is going to be a waste into the Clipped app. You can input your workouts, and when you all of that will help. When you're playing your best, you can see what you do when you play your best. When you're starting to struggle, you can get yourself back to the benchmark of playing well. And Clipped is just really, really, really great at collecting data at all times for this.
Demi, thanks so much for spending your time this evening, and best wishes for another amazing campaign. I know your team is very highly ranked and has a really, really strong opportunity to repeat as national champions. We really appreciate what Stanford has done in using Clipped and how you've been very supportive and outspoken about this wonderful platform. So Demi, if you got any parting thoughts to share with our audience, please do.
It's definitely worth looking into. It's not going to hurt. 30-day free trial is amazing. So yeah, definitely a fan of the Clipped program. If you're a parent or a junior golfer or any level of golfer just trying to get better, why not check it out? It's not going to hurt.